You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Podcast Network. Find all of our shows at wearelibertarians.com. You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Network. Learn more at wearelibertarians.com.
Welcome to the Boss Hog of Liberty podcast. This is episode number 395 of the Central Indiana's favorite podcast. Jeremiah Morrell here, joined by executive video producer, audio engineer Zach Burcham, Mr. Bones Harcourt, and a number of guests. I'm going to let you do a lot of the talking, Bones, because I'm just hanging on by a thread.
That's going to be problems.
We've got today joining us State Representative Cory Criswell, State Representative J.D. Prescott, and Senator Jeff Raatz. Senator Raatz is on he's given us 35 minutes before he's got to go be a senator for one of his other 9 counties he represents. So we're going to take what we can get tonight with him. But when he disappears, once again, just like last time, it's not because Zach upset him. It's just the way it went down. We were warned ahead of time. We're going to talk about some stuff that happened in the General Assembly here as they just wrapped up the long budget session a little over a month ago. And then if there's any time left, we're going to talk about the Pacers and hopefully catch them before the game starts. The show is about our lives in rural Indiana. We're here to push your boundaries and make you think as individuals. Sometimes we provoke you, other times we make you laugh, but hopefully you'll always learn something new. Mr. Bones, who helps us get on the air?
We got Jonathan Phillips over there at Wetzel Ford in Richmond, Indiana. We have Blake Reese over at Varsity Outfitters. We got Thomas Oakes at Walnut Ridge in RV.
He hung out with us this morning.
Oh, he did?
He did. He came out to the track and hung out on the way in. Who else?
We got the Morrell Monument cleaning. Evidently, they clean headstones and not dead people.
Yep, just the monuments. Right down, based in Rush County. You get Joyce a call.
And then we got Pops Recycle. He makes your Schwinn new again.
That's right. A storefront down there in Rushville. So welcome back, everybody. Glad to have you here. I've got a few topics I wanted to talk about, but if you want a general forum just to kind of explain your takeaway, and we spoke to you just as we were getting, I think maybe in the first quarter of the session, and it was, hey, let's come back and talk and wrap this up and put a bow on it. Senator Raatz, we'll start with you and just kind of your view on the session. Was a success, and were your priorities achieved?
Sure. So we do a long session budget every 2 years. And so we have to wait until the budget forecast comes out, not the budget forecast, the revenue forecast comes out to put the final touches on the budget. And so this was, I wouldn't say it's an exceptionally long session, but it was the most difficult session in my 11 years in that building. Just some difficult piece of legislation. And then, of course, having to cut the budget. The revenue forecast came in $2.4 billion or so less than what the budget was set up for. So we had to go back and do a bunch of slashing, and
that happened in the last 2 weeks.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So you had not a lot of time to react.
Yeah. And
last 10 days, essentially.
Yeah. So it was, and there were a lot of surprises for everybody involved in the process. And one thing I am proud of being the chair of education is we cut some of the peripheral things in education, but we maintained the K-12 tuition support across the state. So that was a sign that the legislators in Indiana are interested in having an educated society.
All right. So both Representative Prescott and Criswell sit on the Ways and Means Committee, which meant that you had a front seat to the budget negotiations and dealing with the changes that had to happen. There were 2 main things that were happening in this session that affected revenue, I guess, is that there was a property tax bill that was coming through, and there was a state budget that came. End result is that some property tax reform was achieved, and the state wound up with that $2 billion state revenue shortage that was expected. So what was the end result, and how does it affect East Central Indiana?
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, on the 2.4 revenue shortfall, it's a shortfall from a revenue projection in December. So nothing happened to the surplus that we have in the bank account. We still have a surplus. The surplus is maintained in the ongoing budget. So it's just off of our revenue projections for the next 2 years. So we have a December revenue forecast, an April revenue forecast. The April revenue forecast went down 2.4 from the previous forecast. So it's off future projections. So really, state spending over the next 2 years is actually still slightly higher than current spending, but it's just not growing at the rate that it was. The problem, though, with that in the budget, the Medicaid piece, that's growing to 22% of our state budget. So with that growing to 22%, then you have the basically the mandatory increases that we have to do to cover FSSA and DCS. That eats up all the new revenue plus some of the other revenue. So yes, we did have to cut quite a few. I think it was a little over 300 line items. Is that right, Cory?
Mm-hmm.
On the budget that we cut or eliminated. I'll be honest, when we got the news on that, we got called into a Ways and Means Republican caucus. I don't know if you could tell for it, but I was excited because I looked at that as an opportunity to actually make government more efficient and make some cuts. So we got some cuts in the budget that I've been trying to make for years. So I was actually excited for that.
So tell me about what specifically were you able to
I mean,
adjust?
we cut public broadcast funding, zero line that one. I mean, I don't think we really need to be funding our own demise of public broadcasting by having that liberal media platform out there that does not go along with our philosophies and just in the general public. There's not a need for it. We've got podcasts now. There's all kinds of media. We don't need to be funding broadcasts. That's outside the scope of government. We cut general government across the board, a 5% cut across the board. Plus they are withholding another 5% that is basically gets released at the governor's discretion. So really, we're telling them to try and cut 10%, but it's a hard cut of 5%, an additional 5% that can be released at the discretion of the governor. Universities really reined in IEDC. We cut them. It was 27, 28%, somewhere in that range. I have to go back and look.
IEDC is the Indiana Economic Development Corporation.
Correct.
That's the LEAP district in Boone County that's gotten a lot of adjustments.
Yeah, it was through IEDC. I'd have to go back through my list, but I mean, we had, like I said, there was over 300 line items, and we've really cut across the board.
Okay. Comments from you, Representative Criswell?
Yeah, I think, like JD said, we cut some areas I really think could have been cut and probably need to be reined in and let's look how we can streamline government and streamline our business model per se, like higher ed. I think higher ed getting cut 5%, maybe 10%. I think that's, if you look at their accounts, and I know their endowments are a little bigger. I mean, they got millions, if not billions of dollars sitting there. I think get them on board and say, hey, we're serious about this. I think it's the first time they've been cut in a long time. And I think it'll, be better for students that attend those universities and be better for the staff of the universities too. So that was a big thing that I was really excited about when we started cutting, when we had to cut. I mean, no one wanted to see the $2.4 billion shortfall in the forecast, but we'll see what December comes. I think December is going to be better. I think it's not going to be as bad as what we projected, but I mean, the federal government and President Trump was doing a bunch of things at the time when this is coming out.
So when the forecast was developed, it was right at the peak of the terror.
Yeah, it was either the day before or the day after Liberation Day. So
that's the term we want to use.
Yeah. Well, that's
wow.
You like that? That's what President Trump used. So I'm just using that.
I think the
term.
court said this week we can't talk about it like that anymore.
So I think it just all that it was kind of uncertainty was coming to fruition and starting. Well, I'm not going to say it's never going to settle down completely, but it's starting to kind of ease down and deals are starting to get done. So we'll see in December where it pans out and see where the forecast goes, and then we can relook at things. But JD mentioned Medicaid. Medicaid's getting higher and higher in education. We fully funded education as we should. We have teachers in my district and in the state of Indiana doing a great job educating kids. And Senator Raatz could talk about our reading test scores and math test scores increasing tremendously. I think we hit on it the last time, but I think we dropped 10 or 15 spots in reading, Senator Raatz. And I mean, we fully funded that. And
It was 13 across the U.S., and those are incredible numbers.
yeah, jumping 13 spots. And I'm on record publicly saying it, Ways and Means, we have the best Secretary of Education in the United States. Katie Jenner does a great job leading the state in education, from private schools to charter schools to public schools. She does a great job around and get her message out on what educators need to do, and kind of student focused, and seeing results in that. So
I'm going to mention quick about the $2.5 billion what we have in the bank. It's less than 45 days of operating in the state, and so often I'm sure these guys get the same thing I do. Well, why don't just take a $50 million out of that $2.5 billion? We have to be responsible, right? And so if things start to go upside down, and it's really not enough to help us out.
What point do we hit the automatic refund status? So there's a certain amount of money that the state has that we get checks back.
It's not too far from that. JD might know the exact thing, but you're right. There is a space where we come back and actually give back refunds. You're absolutely right. There's some
it's a percentage of the. So if we get above, is it 15% surplus? So we're at about roughly a little over a 10% annual surplus. I think if you get over I think it's a 15%. I'd have to go back and look. So don't quote me on that.
So it's not a value; it's a percentage of whatever the budget is.
It's a percentage of, and so there may be a dollar amount tied to that too. It might be a two piece if one or the other takes place. I'd have to go back and look at that code site exactly. The key, though, just to build on what Senator Raatz said, it also preserves our state's AAA bond rating. And that's also important, not just for the state government, but all local units of government. So they get lower interest rates whenever they have to do bonded projects. So,
can somebody explain to me what the status is of property taxes in Indiana right now? Because I followed along for a good while, and then there were changes made, and as best I understand, you're potentially going to get a $300 tax credit if you've got like a $350,000 house assessment on your home, and that'll scale down to 200, 100, whatever it is, based upon the volume you have. And then the bill that was passed also allows for municipalities and counties to add local income tax
to lit. So let's touch on the lit piece first. So lit local units of government already have lit capability before Senate Bill 1. They could go up to 3.75 on lit. That was all done through the county. So if a city wanted a lit, they would have to get it approved through the county. County would collect a lit. It would be distributed. Part of that would go to a county. Part of it would go to the city. Part of it would go to the schools. It's a distribution. It's a lit distribution formula is what they would use. So you did have some scenarios where a city wanted to do a project and they needed lit, or a county, one or the other, but not both needed to. So you've got to raise, if the county needs $1, they need to raise $2 because $1 is going to get split up to the other local units of government. So with what we did is we just separated it out to the county controls their piece. They've got a 1.2% cap now for their general fund. Then they've got up to 0.4% that could go towards police or fire and EMS. That's not police on that one, just fire and EMS. 0.2% that can go towards non-civil taxing units, so township government, and then
we got a 911 one in there.
1.2 that'd be in that in the public safety piece. And then they've got 1.2% that can go towards municipal. So so if it's a small town of less than 3,500, the county would have to approve that. It would be collected throughout the county, and it would go. But for like Newcastle, any town that's above 3,500 population, the city now controls their portion of the 1.2% lit. So your total lit cap is 2.9%. So we actually decreased the lit capability. So if we would have passed Senate Bill 1 as it was introduced by the Senate, Governor Braun's proposal, local communities would have had the ability to raise lit higher than what they do with this bill. if we wouldn't have passed anything, local units of government could have raised the lit higher than what they have in this bill. So like I live in Randolph County. They're at a 3% lit right now. So they have to cut theirs 0.1% by 2029.
And then the lit goes to the municipalities. It does not. There's no mechanism for lit to go to your school corporations.
So it's split up now to where it goes under. This doesn't go into effect until 28 is when they have to adopt it, and 29 is when the collection. So this could be adjusted or tweaked before it goes in. But no, it's the county controls their piece, the cities control their piece, and that's where it goes.
Got all that, Mr. Bones?
I do.
And then on the tax savings side, so you mentioned the $300 credit. That was just a small piece of what was in that bill. So there's also a change on the deductions standpoint. So now we're going to be phasing in we're restructuring the deduction. So there's going to be a new 2/3 homestead deduction that's going to be implemented in over a number of years for homeowners. A 1/3 deduction for on your homesteads on the assessed value.
Okay,
for
2/3 of what? 2/3 of the total value
of the assessed value.
So if I've got a home that's assessed at $300,000, then I'm deducting $200,000 of that as my home.
Once it's fully phased in.
How long does that take?
6 years. Okay. Yeah, 6 years on that. And then ag renters, rental properties, those are in the 2% caps. They'll have a 1/3 deduction. And then your 3% won't have any, just like it is current. And so what happens when that's fully phased in, now all the taxing brackets within a taxing unit hit the circuit breaker cap at the same time. And what that does, it provides more transparency to, so when a city council or county council, when they raise and lower your rate, it's actually truly going to be reflective on your tax bill. Because right now, the way the system works, if a county or a city, if they raise or lower the tax rate, it's not necessarily reflective on your bill because you're up against the circuit breaker caps. All that happens is that
entity gets less and the school corporation gets more.
It just gets shifted. Yeah. So you're eliminating that shift. So there's going to be further changes that come with this. I filed legislation to completely eliminate property taxes, and that's where I'm at. But anything that we can do to make progress, simplify the system, and I think we're moving that direction. It is a big bill. There's a lot to comprehend in it. But
one of the criticisms that I was hearing was that it was regressive in that, hey, if you're a renter, say you're a renter and you live in the city of Newcastle, you're not getting a property tax decrease because the rental property wasn't going to get a significant decrease, but then you were potentially going to have a lit added to you that you didn't have now. Is that off base?
So I would say once you factor in the new 1/3 deduction, the 2% tax cut, they haven't had any deductions in the past. So that's a new deduction that's being phased in. So that is a savings to the renters as well.
Assuming it gets passed on to them, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. Yeah. It's up to the owner of the property whether they pass that on or not, and so that's a whole nother story,
right?
And I just to be fair, I doubt landlords are going to lower rates because of but it's going to be harder to justify increases,
right? They're going to be based on whatever the market is going to have for rentals, right, in your community. And that was the concern I had, though, is I was like, if I'm sitting, I put on my pessimism hat or my devil's advocate hat, and I'm sitting on a city council, and I say, hey, this is the moment where I can go raise a lit and not have heat on me because the General Assembly just said, hey, I need to do this to achieve this task. We have county council and county commissioners and city council people come through all the time, and a lot of fingers get pointed at the folks in your chairs because of, hey, the state did this. It seems to me that it's pretty likely that you're going to see those entities add that lit.
So you will see them add the lit from the city perspective because they're going to have to restructure it because they're not going to be getting the portion from the county that they used to receive. So the county rate will come down. The city rate is a net effect. They're still not going to need more dollars to operate. We're just restructuring the way it's working. So, but now you've got full transparency. Who is on the hook for that lit? If the city council's raising your lit beyond what the residents of the city want, vote them out. Now you can hold those. You can. This stops the finger pointing game back and forth between local elected officials.
How many competitive county election races do we have last cycle, Representative Criswell?
None. When it comes to
How
partisan.
am I going to vote him out?
Well, you got to get people on the ballot.
Well, apparently they're happy.
Our county government's turned over 100%. It's just
We've had
turned
two-
over on one.
We've
on
had
one
two
party.
pitchfork
Yeah,
revolts in a decade.
yeah. They still fight. They just
those
fight.
are local. Those.
Yeah.
That's how do you fix that? Are people engaged? Do they really understand? They know what's going on.
That's where property tax dollars do. I mean, all property tax dollars do stay local, and they're a local decision. Like JD said, I don't think this is the last we're going to hear about any property tax reform. I mean, if you pay attention to what Governor Braun's saying outside of this, he keeps hitting on it that we're going to do more, and we'll see if we end up getting to where JD was at the beginning here in the next several years. So, and I'm not going to call that to question call it out of the ordinary if we do eliminate property taxes altogether. Because if you see every time Governor Braun speaks about property taxes, he starts talking about more reform, more reform, more reform. So we'll see where we go. But I'm just going to be frank too. Property tax, we made property tax an issue, but on our desk late in the session, I would say we were in conference committee. We got a little booklet, and a booklet was laying in our mailbox, and we looked at it, and you could turn to property. It showed how we compared to every other state. Property tax, as it was, we made it an issue, but we were 13th best in the United States. Our property tax.
Where'd the booklet come from?
It was some
It was
organization.
from the tax foundation.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
I was
a good source.
Yeah. So
legitimate source, I should say. Yeah.
When I read that, I was shocked, but then I wasn't shocked all at the same time as the people can sit in here. But we made it an issue. We're going to give some property tax relief, and we did put some back on the locals, but they can't say they didn't know. I warned them back last year, June or July. I warned them that Governor Braun, as soon as he put his name in the hat, that's what his number one key issue is. And for all the listeners, if you see any bill on the Senate side 1 through 9, that means it's a super priority.
As is the House.
As you see on the House bill, if it's 1001 to 1009, it's a priority. So there's a good chance something's going to happen with those bills and they're going to pass. Now they're going to get reworked, as did Senate Bill 1 through the process, but more than likely they're going to get legs and they're going to be moving throughout the process on both sides. So,
and now let me add to, and I agree 100%. I want to add that Indiana's looked at by the business community from outside looking in from an economic development standpoint very well as our taxing structure. And whatever we do, I want to make sure we don't lose that as well. So, we have to look at it from the inside of the state for the citizenry, property taxes, and how they're all that piece. We also got to make sure that, and that's my only caution to everybody, is when we do this thing, we got to make sure that we don't turn the dial and make it put us in a situation where a business looking at coming to Indiana says, I'm not coming there because X. This tax is now lopsided compared to the way it used to be. That's in addition to all that, we have an incredibly complicated taxing structure. It's incredibly hard to understand.
At least we don't tax inventory anymore. I do want to ask, but while we still have you, Senator Raatz, the school corporation changes that were involved in this. I know that's in your district, and JD, that's in yours, and I guess part of it's in yours as well. So all three of you have a piece of it. Union School Corporation is being eliminated as a result of some changes that came in to the property tax bill. Union schools, kids in one township in Henry County attend there, and it was a surprise to me, and the way it was done was a surprise. Representative Criswell, I reached out to you and you shared with me, hey, this is something that's been on the radar for a long time. Most of the students there aren't necessarily locals.
Yeah.
So tell me what was going on.
Yeah. So just to be frank, I did my student teaching. I'm 9 years educator, teacher. My student teaching was at Union schools under Mrs. Wright and Mr. Gass. So I did my student teaching there. attendance was declining there rapidly. They were, I think, 2014 or so, there was controversy that they were going to have to close their doors anyways, and then an online school came and kind of got them back going. But 62% of their students that are supposed to go to Union Modoc don't go to Union Modoc. They either go to Winchester, Randolph Southern, Monroe Central, Blue River, any of those surrounding schools. They go there. So 62% of the students don't attend
that
live in the district
Yeah.
don't attend there. And their test scores, now people, they want to throw out their in-person test scores and versus not include the online. Well, they get the money they get from both.
So they had a school corporation budget. We looked it up. It was like $60 or $66 million a year for the school corporation because their population of students was in the near 10,000, right?
Yeah. So they have a little over 200 kids in person, and they have 9,000 kids online.
Yeah. So let me explain that quick because that's an agreement between the two of them. So the virtual program contracts with that school system, and that they actually give them a certain percentage of what they get per student to be able to house their program within the four walls of that school. And there's two things that happen. The school district, now the accountability for the virtual program goes through that school. So if traditionally virtual programs, the scores struggle, just to be frank about it without being rude or anything, it's just the way that it is. And so that pulls the brick and mortar, I like to put it that way, down as well. And so that is exactly what happened there. And if I don't have Randolph County anymore, but I did back in the day. And so about 17 or so, the appropriations chairman came and said, what is going on in this Union School Corp that their census is going up and Randolph County is losing population? And so we finally figured out we didn't have a law that said a virtual program could not become partners with a traditional pub. And so that's exactly what happened. And when you say there's 9,000 students, that's correct. Whatever that number is, I'm not exactly sure what the number is today, but they partner, and all they do, like the lady that runs the program, her office is in that school, and that's it. Now they may do some virtual programming with some of the students that are in that are actually physically in that district, but ultimately that's exactly how the deal comes down.
So something about that didn't have the accountability the legislature wanted, and it turned to, hey, we're going to basically close the school corporation instead of saying we're not going to have the shell organization. It's hey, we're dissolving it.
Well, I wouldn't say necessarily the accountability piece. I mean, that's part of it. The scores, right, are problematic. The school district itself, that was fairly decent. It wasn't.
Yeah. So if you look at Union School Corporation, the numbers as a whole, I mean, they are dead bottom in the state on their test scores. And then again, that is aggregate. That's in-person, virtual combined. But I mean, you take the funding for all of them, you count the test scores for all of them. They are dead last in the state, either last or second to last in every category, just about. I mean, I think their sixth grade math proficiency rate was like 1.4%. I don't know how you do that bad if you try. It's bad. And 228 students in person, like Rep. Criswell mentioned, over 60% of the kids that live in that district have already transferred out. So the parents have already en masse in that district have fled the district. And so yeah, if you look at, okay, what if we would have just, closed down the virtual component of it and left the in-person school open? Well, then it would have let them dry. They wouldn't be able to financially survive.
2 years.
They would have closed the building.
You don't have the head count to support school.
And they might have stayed open a few more years than they would have been able to stay 2 years basically on the funds that they have, but then they might have been able to stay open a couple years longer, which they would have tried and ran up a bunch of debt. Well, then who's going to be paying for it? The rest of the taxpayers in our community. They'd be the ones paying for it. So it's either and to be honest, do I want to come into session and just, get rid of a school corporation? That wasn't, it's not, but when you have a problem in front of you, you got to address it. You can't just ignore the problem. And there really was no great solution, but this was the best solution that I thought we had.
So I think I'm sold, and I think most listeners are going to be sold that the corporation had a problem. The thing that was alarming to me is it didn't come to the education committee. It wasn't a bill to say, hey, we're going to do this with this one school corporation. It wound up in an amendment of this property tax bill that was a must pass. Hey, now this is in there. So you can't vote no to property taxes and yes to the union school corporation thing. Is that a normal process, or is this how do we decide this is what's supposed to happen?
Well, let me start by saying the concept of it actually coming to education committee. There's two pieces to the piece. One, there's fiscal pieces to it, which generally we work with academic policy, right, and making sure that we're getting better at what we're doing. That's really the focus in education. So there's a fiscal component to it as well. We don't talk about this often, but either Cory or JD mentions we have open enrollment in Indiana as well. So if you live in Rush County and you want to send your kid to Evansville, you can do it.
You just have to get them there.
You have to get them there and get them back.
Luck.
Yeah. So
well, even though 69, you could do it if you're really dedicated.
Yeah, that's true.
If you love your kids enough.
But the interesting thing is the local property tax dollars don't follow the student. They stay in the district. The other thing to think about here is rural Indiana is shrinking in population. We all have to agree with that. There are 24,000 people total in Randolph County. There's 65,000 in Wayne County. There's 45,000 in Henry County. Each of those counties have 5 school districts.
If we count the prison.
Okay. Well,
they're just not paying taxes.
Got it. Yeah. We can talk about that too. I could make some kind of a come off on that one. But you know, the concept, if you just look at the economy of scale, you can't offer the breadth and depth of academic offerings with the way we fund schools by butts and seats. It just don't work. 24,000 is half of this county, and it just doesn't work. And so, I have to admit, I'm incredibly proud of what's happening in Randolph County. They are far ahead of the state when it looks at their CT program. They're actually sharing. They have a nursing program in Union City. They have a machining and welding and other things in state of the art in Randolph Central and Winchester, and then Monroe Central's got an ag program, and they bus kids back and forth. They share them back and forth to make sure that they're actually getting a good education of what they want, right? And so there are a lot of good things happening in Randolph County. The economies of scale just don't support. You got to hand it to that superintendent that partnered with the virtual program to keep the school going. And as Rep. Prescott mentioned, in this case, the county's not going to end up with a bill of running a deficit and letting the building deteriorate and all those type of things. And so, as ugly as this thing looks from the outside, it's probably the best thing that could happen.
How did a superintendent living in Michiana service that corporation?
That is a great question that I do not have an answer to, but I'm not going to say anymore. Sorry.
Cory knows what I was thinking.
They lived in South Bend, right? Or South Bend, Elkhart, whatever.
Yeah, pretty close. It was
and
about 100. His hometown's about 150 miles from the school. So, and he got paid mileage and has a car. So
good work if you can get it.
And so just to clarify though on how this went in. So and without getting into too much detail on it, because there is some litigation, so I got to be a little careful with words from that standpoint. But what I can say on this, there was a bill filed by Representative Teshka that would have turned union schools into a charter school. Now, union schools was not the target of that bill. There was 4 other school corporations that was involved. That bill didn't end up passing, but so there was a bill filed at the beginning of session that would have turned union into a charter school. That bill didn't move, and it would have dissolved Union School Corporation, 4 other schools, turned them all into a charter that had been governed by Indianapolis, essentially. And then, like I said, that bill didn't It wasn't a good idea.
It's kind of a nuke and it got a lot of attention in the donut or within the donut.
It was more of a negotiation bill, I think. And then in Ways and Means Committee during the budget presentation, union schools actually came to testify on the budget. And they came and testified asking for more money for their virtual program. And there was adequate discussion in the Ways and Means Committee questioning union schools specifically on their test scores and their performance and what they're doing with virtual. So it didn't just come out of the blue with union. There was, I believe there was adequate discussion. I'll let Cory speak for himself there. But, and then, yes, this did go into a bill in committee. So it was a committee amendment. There was discussion on union school as part of that piece of the underlying amendment. So it wasn't, yes, we talked about it specifically in committee. There was also a chance on second reading. There was an amendment by one of the other members on the opposite side of the aisle to remove that section from the bill. So there was an up or down vote on the House floor on a second reading amendment specifically on whether to close Union School Corporation on July 1st of 2027. That was an up or down vote on the floor, and then it was discussed again on third reading. Then they went back over to the Senate to vote as well. So, I mean, people from union had the opportunity to reach out and talk to legislators and make their case. I mean, so it wasn't like there was no time. It was a last minute shoved into a conference committee report. This went through the legislative process. We did everything legally and appropriately. So I just wanted to clarify that.
I appreciate that. There was another, I think you and I, Representative Criswell, had this discussion. There was an attempted amendment for school corporations in communities less than 50,000 to go to a single corporation. So I think Henry County's got 6 school corporations now, and they would have gone down to one administration, essentially. Which I think is an interesting thought. But it was just an amendment. It didn't actually go anywhere.
Yeah, it was an amendment on Senate Bill 1. It got discussion in Ways and Means. We talked about it, and then it was an idea from Representative Judy up around Fort Wayne for, like you said, counties less than 50,000. They got one admin building. All the schools stay open. You just have one superintendent, one central office making decisions. Obviously.
One school board, I assume.
One school board. And how that would work, they would come together and they would have a couple years to decide who would be the superintendent, how this board layout would look, and different things like that. So it got discussion, and I think from looking at it, can you save money doing that? I think you can. How much can you save? There's different ways to look at it. We would in Henry County, if it went through and passed, we would have one superintendent for Tri, Knightstown, Shenandoah, Blue River, and Newcastle. We'd have one superintendent, and then Heartland School District would be on their own
because they're a private
school. So for 5 schools, one superintendent, one admin.
I would assume this would affect about 60 or 70 counties.
The interesting thing is that it exists it's already in code. I put it in as a result of that, of Union School Corp back in the day, looking at the cost of things. And we actually had a $500 incentive per student that if two school corporations wanted to combine their administration, it'd be a one-time $500 per student to handle the legal work and that had to be done, the cost and that. This specifically just to save, and Rep. Criswell is absolutely correct that it's not going to save a pile of money, but it's beginning to take a look at things together. And so it exists in code. It just wasn't, it's not a shall. And this Judy's probably was a shall. Yeah. So,
and I always find it interesting. And I think I brought it up to several people and I kind of have an idea. I think it's common sense, but I don't know if it can legally happen. I just think like you look at health insurance and you have all these under, say, Henry County Community Schools, all these employees under one. The more employees you have, it's going to drive down your insurance plan. It's going to drive down cost. But my idea is any public safety, counties, anything that's state funded, and they both heard me, if it's fully funded by state dollars, citizens' dollars, why can't all those people, I don't understand why the health insurance plan can't be statewide. Every educator, county council, fire, police, why it can't be under one plan, and then it would drive costs, I feel like, way down. You have millions of people on this plan. Because realistically, we're all paying for it anyways. Our tax dollars are paying for it anyways. So why couldn't it be one huge statewide plan when it's funded by tax dollars? So I brought that up to a few people, and so we'll see if that ever. I don't understand the health policy well enough to carry a bill like that. Now I could file it, but there's people in the General Assembly that understand it more, and we'll see if it ever gets legs. But I think it makes sense.
There was a bill in the Senate to begin to chew around the edges of exactly what you're talking about this session. I don't think it didn't make it in its original version because of all the chaos in healthcare today. But yeah.
And I just think from the way I look at it, it could drive down costs. Obviously, the counties could reimburse the plan that's going to be lower. They could reimburse whatever it costs. I'm sure it'd be pretty simple to figure out how much they're saving and what to reimburse the state. But just a thought process behind trying to save. We always talk about trying to save dollars and make it more efficient. I don't feel like it's efficient to have all these health insurance plans when you could go to one.
I know. I'm going to transition us gently in a way that y'all did save some money for the state. We can no longer get Denali's and high country SUVs for statewide office holders. It's Chevy LTs and under now for secretaries of state, lieutenant governors, I assume state treasurers,
All state
attorneys general, et cetera, et cetera. We spent a lot of time laughing about that over the last couple months on this show. Y'all got some characters in the state house.
Yeah. Statewide elected officials.
Tell me about how these groups work together, because I assume the General Assembly sets the budget and says, here's how much money the Secretary of State's office has for them to do whatever they're responsible for doing, which at best I can tell is to, look over the BMV, or not the BMV, but the, I guess, automotive functions of auto dealerships.
Secretary of State, yeah.
Secretary of State. They're responsible for notaries, elections, and I think Hungarian ambassadorships, I think, are the things that they're responsible for at this point. How, help me out. And the maps. They print maps too. Because I got my map at the state fair and my koozie. I got my koozie at the state fair too. It says that Representative or Secretary Morales. I don't know why I needed a koozie, but I got one at the state fair. Tell me about the oversight that the General Assembly has over these statewide office holders.
Really just the budget. I mean, that's it. I mean, they have to implement the laws that we pass and the budget.
That's exactly right. And they came to the House, they come to the Senate. I sent our appropriations over there. Same thing. They present their budget, their ask, and I don't think anybody got what they asked for, at least that I can think of.
No, nobody did.
Totally. At least those two didn't.
No.
So you don't determine the scope of their role, what they're supposed to do, any of that. I mean, you determine.
Certainly not micromanage, that's for sure.
Right.
But micromanaging, I suppose you could make a case financially, we would end up micromanaging by slashing the budget.
Well, we just set their total, their baseline budget. They have discretion within that budget. I mean, obviously, on the Secretary of State's with election law, we set election law. They have to implement that election law, but that's as far as the discretion goes. They're held accountable to the voters statewide, and there's really not much else we can do from a holding them accountable standpoint other than the budget.
So if we have a Secretary of State that is making it up as they go and taking on tasks that aren't necessarily theirs, it's, hey, it's up to the people at the next Republican convention to replace that person on the ballot.
Yeah.
Because it's probably not going to happen in the fall.
The bottom line is we shouldn't. The General Assembly is not designed to micromanage. Honestly, we're really not. Even the budget piece, that's a big deal, and we can micromanage, and you've seen some of it as a result of some of these things you mentioned. But that's getting pretty down into the fine grit of what happens. And that we do it because we have to, but it's not designed that way. It's just like having to vote on, as we talked about earlier before the show started, on the buses in Marion County, right?
Yeah.
Because of issues and things. And so occasionally some of that stuff comes up.
And really, I mean, if you think about it, so let's flip the script a little bit. So we are lawmakers. We have the ability to write law, but budget's part of the lawmaking process. That's all of our authority. If we get outside of that, now we're outside of our bounds as elected officials. So, I mean, we have no authority other than to write laws, and that's it.
You can amend the Constitution, right?
We can't technically. We can propose an amendment, but the citizens have to.
You have to pass it twice, and then it goes to the citizens.
Yeah.
It's about the lieutenant governor's office, because there were, I don't know, 30 different departments and things that the lieutenant governor was responsible for, and now they're back down to the Department of Agriculture. Is that the General Assembly or the governor's office that's making that determination as to who's?
It was the governor's office, because a lot of the authority that was given to the lieutenant governor's office over the years was done by the governor's office, and so they have the ability to take that back. There are some specific items that are in statute that the General Assembly has given to the Lieutenant Governor through OCRA. That all still remains. We didn't take any of that away, and that would be like the Office of Broadband. That's now under OCRA, so that's under the Lieutenant Governor's purview still. But no, those changes that was made at the beginning of the year, that was done through the executive branch, and the process of how Governor Braun set up his
administration.
His administration,
He operates, yeah.
Okay.
And of course, I suppose it's in the Constitution that the Lieutenant Governor presides over the Senate. That might be statutory.
Yeah, that's in the Constitution.
And so, but there's no that physician has literally zero opportunity to weigh in on any piece of legislation, with the exception of if there's a tie vote, they cast the tiebreaker.
They're the tiebreaker. Anything else on this one, Mr. Zach?
No. I mean, we had a lot of fun talking about it, and Diego's parking space is absurd to park his murdered out Yukon Denali that costs more than my house. But yeah, I'm just curious. Like, it was interesting to see because there was a lot of fallout from that, and I'll be honest, it kind of looks terrible when everybody's like, trim your belts, and then two elected officials spend $90,000 on trucks, and one of them keeps going on trips that he tries to write off as government expenses, but nobody knows where he goes or why he's left. So it's interesting to see if there's like obviously somebody decided to pass a law that says they can't buy super expensive trucks, which is nice, and hopefully that'll be respected going forward. I don't even have a problem with the governor having a nice vehicle, but like in the last, they're always in the parade, and Holcomb always is rolling in a Toyota, can't try to do it, Sequoia. That doesn't look anything crazy. Wouldn't even stand out in a Walmart parking lot. So it is kind of curious to see, like, I don't know if that would annoy anybody when you guys walk in the state house and you see him parked there, and just like, that makes our jobs harder to do that. But other than that, it was a fun topic to talk about for a couple of weeks. And I'm a car guy, so it really hit me hard to see that. So
the most painful part is that they bought the 6.2
yeah, now they're waiting for
V8 that was on a stop order, so you couldn't even buy one. They're going to blow up. They
are waiting for that to blow up. So him and his bros are going to get stuck somewhere, and they're big guys, and they don't walk very far. Apparently,
stuck up in Kankakee.
That's as big as they get for a gas hog, isn't it?
It is. It is. The if they bought the pickup truck, it would have been built in Fort Wayne. Instead, they bought the truck that was built in Arlington, Texas, too. Just a lot of.
Well, and go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, we make Subarus in Indiana, we make Toyotas in Indiana, we make pickup trucks in Indiana. Don't pick the one that's not made here.
Well, and I get the public reaction to this, because I mean, as an elected official, I think we have a duty to the taxpayers to be more financially responsible with their money than our own money. I mean, if I want to buy a fully loaded truck or something with my own money, that's my business. But I wouldn't do that with taxpayer dollars. I mean, I think our elected officials should do the same.
The Lieutenant Governor's office said that that the vehicle had been wrecked by the previous lieutenant governor. And apparently they just reassigned it out to another department head, and they said the vehicle's just fine.
Head of the Department of Correction, I believe.
Yeah. I don't know.
I bet he's enjoying it.
You can hang out as
I
long
can't
as you want
speak
to,
to that.
Senator. But it's after 8. I know you had set a soft time. The Pacers are on, so I know one guy in here is dressed in his blue and gold, so I figured we
Yeah.
had to throw some basketball in.
Today's the day.
Always
Right.
supporting the Pacers. I was fortunate enough to go to game 3. They blew a lead, but the atmosphere was electric in that place, and we're rooting for them. Hopefully they can get it done tonight. Off to a slow start, but hey.
I heard an interesting theory about what might happen at that game. The crowd ran out of gas because they'd all been watching the race, and some of them had been partying at the race all day. And so then they got there, and they're like, yeah, they had it for about a half. And then they're like, oh, man, I'm tired. I've been running around. Because there was a guy that walked from the race
I saw
to the Pacer game.
No way.
And it's not,
He was a New York fan.
yeah. I mean, it's not a horrible walk,
It's
but
half a mini marathon.
But if you've been hanging out, yeah, it's a chunk. It's like, yeah, it's about a 5K downtown. But if you've been like around the track and you got there at like 6 a.m. and you got up at 4 o'clock in the morning, that is a long day. Like I knew the minute the game was over, Jeremiah and I were watching it at the campground. I'm like going to bed, tapping out. It was kind of a late night, so yeah. But they'll finish it up today.
Yeah, the Pacers, they're playing in New York now. It's I don't know, 10 to 5. They're trailing. The senator's leaving. He's walking across the camera. He looks mighty good in his custom polo. You're not on your tippy toes like it's Secretary of State, are you?
No.
Jeremiah doesn't miss much.
I've been at the racetrack for a month too. Could you imagine how much sharper I'd be if I was running at 100%? Who's taller, him or the Secretary of State?
Jeff is.
Jeff. My
Yeah.
God, he's a little guy, isn't he? Diego.
I haven't seen him in
he's-
person up close. I've only seen him in person far away. And
I don't go to enough Republican fundraisers. I know that's where you have to catch him at the courthouse and those sorts of things. If they're doing hot dogs or whatever. All right. Any more basketball you want to talk about? You got your big bill passed, so that now we can transfer for athletic reasons, right?
Well,
So
yeah, my bill passed, and then the following couple weeks, the IHSA passed their resolution. So, like we talked about earlier, if you're a freshman to junior, you can transfer one time, and then if you transfer again, then it goes back to the normal process. It goes to the IHSA, and you got to go through all that. And then if you go transfer your senior year, you can. Then there's just going to be a penalty. You got to sit out 30 days of every sport you played your junior year. So try to limit it a little bit. We'll see how it works. If they need to adjust it, we can discuss and we can adjust it. But I think it's a good starting point. It's not too lenient. It's not getting to NCAA level and letting everybody go wherever they want. But kind of limits it to one, and then there's a penalty after that.
there was one more actual issue I wanted to get into that I'd skipped over because I knew we were going to lose the senator. Tolling on the interstates, it got another advance forward. I assume this is so that y'all can have me quit bitching so much about I-70 in its bad condition, right?
That has a little to do with it.
What's the story? So there, I-70 is potentially in the tolling window, and then is it I-94 or I-65? 65 is potentially going to get tolls as well. So that the state has now formally asked the federal highway organization, can we do this? Is that the status?
Yeah, they've submitted a request to be able to do so. I forget, is it technically is it a waiver or is it a form? I don't know. They submitted the request to be able to do so, whatever that form is they have to fill out, and this is just really exploring the idea. So if you're going to toll 70, you can't toll 70 in its current condition. So it needs to be completely repaved all the way.
You need an expansion.
You need an expansion, and you got to get it in better condition. Not just an expansion. You got to improve the condition of it. Right now, it's horrible.
You can't toll it and tell them you're going to fix it later. You need to fix it.
Yeah, right. You got to fix it first and then toll it. So it would be a process. When we look at road funding in the state in general, we have more interstate miles per capita than most other states in the country. And so it is costly to us as to do so. So we're looking at ways to where it's a user fee. You pay per mile. There's other possibilities out there for alternatives for road funding to that could be, a tax on delivery fees. That's something that was talked about that could be brought up in the future.
That was in a bill that came out.
That was in a bill and it came out. We didn't pass that, but I'm just saying there's other things being talked about. And so road funding in general is going to continue to be, and we can't just keep increasing gas tax either.
Well, your trucks don't necessarily stop in Indiana and fuel,
no,
right?
No, they don't.
If they're coming across the 120 miles of I-70, they could very well have gotten fuel in Ohio and then not get it again until St. Louis.
Right.
And you never get that revenue.
Yep. And I think we should look at and to explore, and you have to be creative how you do this from an interstate commerce perspective. But if we're going to toll 70, for example, I think we should structure it in a way to where Indiana residents get a break,
get a discount,
get a tax credit or something. You'd have to technically charge them the same rate because of from an interstate commerce perspective. But what you could do, and this is just me thinking outside the box, so maybe I'm crazy, Cory, but but what you could do is, at vehicle registration, you have the ability to opt in to prepay your toll, but then you just get a tax credit at the end of that comes off your bill. So you get a break for that, or you get an annual amount for a sticker or something.
You could prepay a year's worth or whatever for a flat fee,
right? And then get a tax
that would be
credit
available
back.
to anybody. But if only Indiana residents would choose to do that.
Yeah, and then only Indiana residents would get the tax credit type of deal too if they did that. So I mean, there's some creative ways to do it to where it would be you're really taxing those that are coming across and using our infrastructure.
And I kind of asked that on my survey this year. I didn't specific, but this coming year, it's going to be a specific question. Would you be for tolling interstates if you eliminate gas tax or something, word it similar to that? Because I think this year it said if we can confirm to eliminate or lower gas tax, do you approve of other options? Something similar like, and it was like 85%. But
if you're eliminating gas tax, that also means that you're getting rid of it for the locals, right?
Yeah,
so you have to toll enough on those interstates to pay for all of your local interstate.
And I agree with JD. We got to give Indiana residents. They're not going to be paying as much as the truck.
If Zach Burcham, a state employee, is driving from Newcastle to Indianapolis every day and he's got $5 each way to go to work, he's going to need a raise to go do his job he does for the state.
I'm going to have to go there 40% more next month. So, yeah. I mean, I'd love to find a way to kind of go after truckers because one, they're annoying me on my commute. They like to take up all the lanes and go as slow as they need to go. But yeah, they're like 70 is still, and they kind of came through and did some spot work like a couple months ago. It's seemingly westbound, but not eastbound. 70 needs something done because it is rough. I mean, it is rough. And I've seen, like, the only toll roads I've really seen are Florida. I've been through one, North Carolina one. They don't have, those are nice because you don't have to stop. They literally just, it's a plate reader that you drive kind of under some arches. The West Virginia Turnpike is starting to look like Indiana's roads, and I don't understand what I'm paying for there. But yeah, if they can get them fixed up, then be something. But as many people as commute on 70, I'm assuming on 69 and all the other ones, I hope there'd be some way to give people relief. I'm like, as bad as I think my commute is from Henry County into Indianapolis, there's people that pass me that are going home to Wayne County.
I think there's a cap on the toll bridges, a certain number of trips in a month, and then you no longer pay. Yeah. So you could do something like that as well for commuters, where you could say, hey, we're going to charge you the first 10 trips, and then after that, you're in the clear.
I am pro lowering the gas tax because I'll admit, for spring break, I can look on, everybody's got apps. You can look on apps, you can see what fuel prices are. And I normally like to leave with my camper with a full tank of fuel, and I was going to Kentucky, and I'm like, I'm not. Because when I get to Kentucky, diesel drops 30 cents, and gas does too. Yeah. Just the minute you cross the state line. And so I'm like, man, we got to do something. So yeah, in that case, that saved me 30 cents a gallon on a 40-gallon tank. So that's a chunk. So
yeah, and to the gas tax, so you couldn't. I don't think you can completely eliminate the gas tax, but you could reduce it with the tolling there, and again with also putting other user fees on delivery fees. Because if you think about it, your FedEx trucks, your your
Well,
Amazon trucks on delivery
I mean,
packages.
Amazon
That's a lot
trucks
of
and
wear and
nothing
tear.
else. Like their model now is kind of bizarre in that they're sending just hundreds, if not thousands, of vans out
Yeah.
they don't send a big truck to a town and then unload it in a smaller van. They're just sending the vans out like cockroaches everywhere. So there's so many of them. They're literally, I will be in the neighborhood and there will be 5 Amazon delivery people. I was
he's talking for Big Brown Truck over here.
I was like, I just saw your buddy 2 streets that way. What happened here? Yeah, it's like their model is interesting. That it's a lot of traffic, and they're sending out a lot of traffic in the areas that they have warehouses.
But on the gas tax piece, so it's interesting. So I represent Union City, Indiana. So it's and Union City's half in Indiana, half in Ohio. So obviously you see the gas price difference. Well, a lot of times the price difference when you're looking at Indiana and Ohio, the difference is more than the gas tax. So it's a combination of the gas tax and then the distribution.
What
routes.
Distribution they're getting it from? Because your Ohio station's getting it from
exactly
from Dayton, and the Indianapolis is feeding the one in the Indiana station. Right?
So where we're at, we're right on the edge of 2 distributions. So if you're on that eastern distribution, it's just cheaper in that eastern distribution chain for some reason. I don't know why. Their market it's lower.
BP and I guess Toledo.
Well, yeah. But I just don't know that. That's not my area of expertise on the industry, so I don't know that market as well. I mean, I know the ethanol industry pretty well with my family's involvement there, but I mean, in general, I don't follow the
gas prices are also just weird.
But
they sometimes somewhat defy normal economics. They tend to jump very quickly, and then they take their merry old time kind of coming down. And in town, commuting from Indy, at one point gas here in town was $3.15, and at Mount Comfort it was $2.77, and then it all kind of corrected at one point and jumped up, and then it's slowly kind of trickling down, and now we're below $3 at some spots in town. So gas prices are a funky thing. I can only imagine being a town that straddles state lines but yeah, I could see the stations in Ohio, the Ohio stations keeping the price a little higher because they can, because the Indiana side stations are a little higher, and it's a little extra money in a pocket, you never know.
On the road construction side, I know when Representative Pierce was here, he said that he was very interested to see how the study works with the road safety cameras.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that they're getting ready to actually start issuing tickets that have money associated with them in the next few weeks, because the number of violations has been just off the charts. Do you guys have any expectations for that program? I think they owe you a report, I guess, in November or December, and then you'll have to decide if you're going to re-up it and go forward with it, because it's a pilot program right now.
Yeah, so I mean, what I'm looking for in that report is just to see what the average speed has dropped in the work zones. Is it working? And there's only 4 cameras statewide, so but you don't know where they're at, so it's a deterrent as well.
I know where they are.
You can figure it out, but I mean, most drivers
Fort Wayne now
don't know where they're at all the time, but they because they can put more signage up and they've got cameras out. So to see how big the deterrent factor works, I mean, when you're out though, and when you're out there in those work zones and trucks are flying by, I mean, it is a safety concern, and we need to get that traffic flow down. So I'm just that's what I'm looking forward to see is how much what type of impact did we make there? Is it really making a difference? Or
and you didn't balance the budget based on that money coming in, right?
No,
we're not spending that money on anything mission critical. It's just there as a fine to put some teeth in it.
And to be honest, I don't even know what the fiscal impact of that bill is off the top of my head. I'd have to go back and look to see what they're projecting it would even bring in. It can't be much in the grand scheme of things.
Any comments on State Road 3 reconstruction making your office lately?
I'm getting some calls on it, and I detour around it, going to the Hall of Fame every day. So I go down by Westwood and come around, try to stay off of it, and I plan to do that from here on out.
I haven't driven the length of it yet, but I did experience Indiana Avenue going north.
I want to write this out in crayon for my fellow drivers here, because I've been nearly sideswiped 3 out of 5 days this week.
I understand why that intersection's giving people problems, though. Indiana Avenue
in 3 because on 3 going north, there's 3 lanes. There's only one line, so there's not a separation for the right hand turn and center.
There's
lane.
signs up above, but
There's signs up above, but like there's
there's
signs up above at 3 coming back into town at 38, and people don't make that veer. They need to paint the road, and like this is some Lee Walker, if you're listening, this is some Newcastle vigilante work right here. Just send the city out there and just paint the lines, because I know the city at times has gone in and done things the NDOT should be doing, but they just haven't.
I have driven that literally every day this week, and I thought I'm going to get to work and send an email to Nathan Riggs, the NDOT project manager, on this, and I haven't done it. But I thought the same thing. Is I'm like, we need some damn lanes.
It needs because there's just nothing. And I totally understand for people that don't understand it's one way. It's a 1 or a 2 lane road at this point, right? Moving up to Indiana Avenue, and then suddenly the southbound lanes are pushed over 2 lanes, and now you have 3 lanes at this intersection: left-hand turn, center to go straight, and right-hand turn. But there is only a line between the left-hand turn lane and the center lane. The signs above, there's no separation. So apparently people are just doing whatever they want in the right-hand turn.
Oh, you have no idea, because while I was coming here today, it was 4 lanes.
Yeah.
I've whoever's in that right lane, if they don't have a blinker on, I just assume they're aiming for my door. When I'm continuing on, I'm assuming I'm going to get a side impact.
I totally, anytime they do construction like this, I understand they have to do it, but like it's always so sketchy when you're like making a left-hand turn and you don't know which side of the barrels you're supposed to go on. And sometimes until you get out into the road and you have to look down and see, oh, there's a lane here. And then I don't even know when it goes down to 1 lane, because the barrels I see mostly are down by Trojan, and that's normal at Trojan. They just have the turn lane blocked off, but you can still cut across them. So yeah, Main Street's my main drag now. I'm going to avoid 3 like the plague, because it is rough.
My voice is shot, gentlemen. I mean, say we're going to final thoughts here. JD, thanks for coming.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me back.
Appreciate you being here. Anything we forgot you want to cover? Things you want to clean up?
I don't think so. I think we covered a lot of topics. I think I'm ready to get home and watch Pacers.
There you go. We got some ground to cover. We're down by 9 right now in the first quarter.
Come on, guys.
It's the NBA. I mean,
there's
no lead safe.
There's a long time to go. Mr. Zach?
I don't have much. I'm kind of bummed the month of May is over. Got my tickets renewed. So Roger, there's my money. You can pay for some more filler for your attenuators. They should sell those attenuators, by the way. They should just auction them all. But it was a good month of May. The Memorial Day Parade in Newcastle was delightful because the weather was pretty good. It was probably hot on the parade route, but it was pretty nice to sit on the side of the road and not have to bake. But it was just about as long as the 500 Festival Parade in terms of length. But yeah, other than that, it was a good weekend. And I'm enjoying the cooler weather because I still don't have an air conditioner attached to my house, but I'm hoping to get that fixed the next week or so.
You better, because it's coming in the 90s.
I heard
next
it's coming, yeah.
Can't wait to go to Georgia for it. Representative Criswell, thanks for being here.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us. We had good discussion. Go Pacers, and Matherin's coming to play today, so he just gets in the game and hits a 3. So we need him to show up again.
The last time the Pacers were in the finals, I was a high schooler, so it's been a long damn time.
Yeah.
I did see a fun stat.
I'm really hoping we don't see them blow this 3-1 lead.
People want them to be in the finals with Oklahoma City, so both teams can be built off of Paul George trades.
And just I'll give you a fun fact: Oklahoma City Thunder for Henry County folks and Newcastle folks. Steve Alford's son works as an assistant coach for the Thunder, so he was kind of involved in their G League. So he's behind the bench, but. Just for Newcastle folks that like Steve Alford, his son Bryce is on staff, and hopefully the Pacers will get to play the Thunder, and then the Alfords get to go to the games.
There we go. It's going to be fun. You remember what team they were, Bones, Mr. Bones?
What?
The Thunder, before they were the Thunder?
Yeah, the Supersonics.
Seattle Supersonics, that's right. Final thoughts, Mr. Bones? Thanks for making it today.
You're welcome.
Sorry you didn't get into your bourbon.
It's okay. Yeah, I don't have anything. Sorry. Yeah, I don't have anything. I'm good.
All right. Good. Did you take my advice and bet on Alex Pollock at Indy 500?
No, I did not.
I won.
You didn't win much.
$250. That's a life-changing bet for me.
How much money did you put down on it?
20.
See, it's a bad ROI.
All right. Fair. Because we can't seem to keep a specific show date, This one's my fault next week. We're on Wednesday. Dwight Yoakam's playing at White River State Park next Thursday. So I'm going to that. So we're going to be back next Wednesday. And the plan is to have CEO of Jack's Donuts, Lee Markham, to be here with us. So looking forward to having that. We will catch you guys next Wednesday.